Namaste, aloha. My name is Janapati Das, and I'm here again today to present another class on the Bhagavad Gita from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated and purported upon by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who I offer my respectful obeisances to. First, let me offer my respects to you. I appreciate your feedback, comments, likes, anything on these to share and up the algorithm on these classes I'm doing on the Krishna book and the Bhagavad Gita and other classes. And I'd like to also take the opportunity to offer my most humble obeisances unto my spiritual teacher, Jagat Guru Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, who taught me everything, who is the master of the Guru giving the message of the Bhagavad Gita to all humanity. Jagat Guru, of course, means world teacher, and his message is for all. So I'm going to start by following his instructions and chanting the names of Krishna with you. So please join along with me. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Golakaruna Shivarupaya Radha Krishna Dayate Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaurabhakta Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ganana Timiranda Shaikana Jana Jalakaya Jakshurmilit Hamanyena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. So, in that prayer, of course, we are talking about true Vedic knowledge that our spiritual master has come to us and brought to open our eyes. Because there's, as we've said before, there are many kinds of knowledge, many categories of knowledge, many types of material knowledge, and a lot of people access and utilize this knowledge as the absolute truth when it's not actually the absolute truth. So we are continuing from chapter 2, and the knowledge, the absolute truth, the knowledge from the Vedas, from Krishna, are being transmitted from Krishna to Arjuna in the form that the spiritual master transmits the information in a spiritual lineage all the way back to Krishna. That's why they say that Guru is one. Oftentimes it says, my spiritual master has often explained that people tend to think that in our lineage there are multiple gurus, and they all have their ideas of and ways of taking the knowledge, because a lot of times in scientific thought there is a theory, and a scientist will study something and transmit it, speculate upon it and put it as a theory, and that's my theory. And then the scientist B, who's younger than him, takes his theories and improves upon it. And this is oftentimes people think of spiritual masters in this way, that there's this many gurus, and as you go down the line, they just refine the truth more and more. But this is not true, because my spiritual master said the guru is one. Krishna is the actual true guru, the original guru, and the information that comes from Lord Chaitanya or Krishna is the absolute truth. And when it is transmitted via the spiritual master, it is the same message. So it is not perfected upon, it's not changed. The spiritual master might adapt things to time and circumstance, but the actual essence of the truth is always the same. So that's when the spiritual master comes to you, the lost living entity, like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, and presents the absolute truth. It's like a candle or a torchlight in a cave that you're lost in, and that's why I was born in the darkness of ignorance. We come into the material world, and we are in ignorance, and about our identity, about who we are, and what our purpose of our life is, and what will make us happy, and everything. And this is what Krishna is actually telling Arjuna, because Arjuna is making a point of saying that he didn't want to kill all these relatives on the battlefield, and Krishna was saying these are just the bodies of your family members. The living entity is never killed. And this is what we've just sort of gotten into with this previous verse that says, "No, that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul." So in that purport, Bhaktivedanta was explaining about the, apana, upana, the different kinds of life, subtle life airs that are material in the body that are holding the living entity present within the heart. And the body is this sort of temple or this facility by which the living entity is encased or embodied in. But the consciousness, and then it says, is spread throughout the body. That, in other words, it lends, as my god brother would say, Acharya Das would say, it lends its consciousness to the body, so that it appears that the body is alive and conscious, but actually the body itself is dead. And when the soul, the living entity, is leaving that body, the body immediately breaks down. The life airs stop. And so this is something that Krishna is explaining to Arjuna about the nature of the living entities, and this is where we're at with the Bhagavad Gita. So in text 18, Sanskrit verse is Antavanta ime deha nita yoktaha sharinaha anashino prame yashya tasmad yud yashva barat. Antavantaha, perishable. Ime, all these. Dehaha, material bodies. Nityasya, eternal in existence. So that word in Nitya is eternal, like in the Nityananda, eternally blissful, right? Uktaha, it is so said. Shalinyaha, the embodied souls. Anashina, never to be destroyed. Aprame yasha, immeasurable. Tashmat, therefore. Yud yashva, fight. Bharat, O descendant of Bharat. So there's the title again, okay? And we were talking about, of course, King Bharat, great King Bharat. And Arjuna is in a lineage of family members from King Bharat, Emperor Bharat. Translation, only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharat. So he's reminding him of his great lineage as in this great spiritual kings and emperors. But he's also making a point as related to the previous verse. He was saying that the soul is immutable, it's not destructible, it cannot be killed. Whereas the body can be killed, the living entity is impossible to be killed. So he was saying here that the material body of which the living entity is present, this indestructible living entity is present within the body, giving it consciousness. Only the body is what is going to die. So yes, the bodies of all these your family members will die, and that's true, but they will not die. So that's that, reiterating that point. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta. The material body is perishable by nature. That's, there is actually a part in the Mahabharata, which the Bhagavad Gita is part of, that I think what I recall is that Yudhisthira, the brother of Arjuna, the great emperor and saintly king, he was asked in a riddle in another part of the story. I won't go into all the detail of it. You can read that if you want. He was asked, what is the most amazing thing? And one of the most amazing things is that despite the fact that everyone sees everyone and everything around them dying, they still believe that they still act on the platform that they're going to live forever. And they almost in a stupor or delusion or an illusion of trying to facilitate and act like their material body or try to keep their body together. But it says here, Bhaktivedanta says, the material body is perishable by nature. And really everyone kind of knows that. They know that. But they don't. It may perish immediately, or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only, right? Time waits for no man, that's saying. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. Like I was at the gym. I'm in the middle age, I'm 55 years old, and so I gotta work harder to keep my body together. Of course, I do that as instruction by my spiritual master to take care of my body, this body that is given to me by Krishna, as best as I can, as long as I can, to be able to serve Krishna. But I'm not in any illusion that, eventually, because I already see it, it's like it's harder and harder to try to keep your body well. You're 21, you're doing all kinds of terrible things, you're eating terribly, but you feel like you have tons of energy, but at 55, you have to work harder, your body hurts, you don't get up, your neck's out, it's just like, or you feel like, and then it just goes downhill from there, and all you can do is try to maintain as best as you can. But here Bhaktivedanta says there's no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. Eventually it's just gonna fall apart. It's like even the cars, you keep changing the things for it, and eventually the car you can keep it running for a while, but it, eventually just craps out. But the spirit soul is minute, that it cannot be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there's no cause of lamentation, because the living entity can neither be killed as he is, nor can the material body, which cannot be saved for any length of time, be permanently protected. Oh, okay. So it's saying that the living entity cannot be killed, and the body cannot be protected. So even when trying to save the body of his family members, the body will eventually die. And there's a lot to be said about that. I think Krishna is making the point why it's better to fight in this battle that is sanctioned by me. It's a religious war, religious fighting for religious principles, or just, do what you want to do, like you go off and be a yogi and eventually have to face death in the forest. It's like without following my instructions. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body, a body according to his work. So that's the work we're talking about, is karma, which we're going to get into in the 3rd and the 5th chapters of Karma Yoga, and what karma is and what karma yoga is. But basically they're talking about work, the activities that you do in this life, and what you do them for and who you do them for are determinant of the reactions or potential reactions later. And so therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is in the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and sacrifice the material body for the cause of religion. It's something actually very interesting, because citing this prayer about spiritual knowledge as being light, the spiritual master brings this light in a darkness of ignorance. It's also fitting to say that, because the spiritual knowledge, or the Bhagavad Gita, the the Vedic, the instructions of the spiritual master, the scriptures, the chanting of Krishna's names, they are non-different from Krishna. They are light. They are this spiritual light that is presented to us, and it helps us destroy the darkness of the ignorance and actually see things for what they really are. So text 19. Yanam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate mahatam ubao tao na vijanito nayam hanti nayahayante ya. Anyone enam this, veti knows, hantaram the killer, yaha anyone, cha also, enam this, manyate thinks, hatam killed, upao both of them, tao they, na never, vijanita in knowledge, na never, ayam this, hanti kills, na nor hanyate be killed. Translation of text 19. He who thinks that the living entity is the slayer or that he is slain does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not nor is slain. So very interesting verse, as always. All the verses are interesting. To understand is to know, right? And to know, you have to hear the spiritual knowledge, and that is the light that gives you the vision to understand. So this idea that he's saying that I'm going to go kill my family members, he's not really killing the family members. Actually, his body is killing. The body is being used to kill other bodies. So the living entity itself of Arjuna is not doing anything, and the living entity on the battlefield are also not doing anything. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not nor is slain. So it's not actually the slaying is done by the body and of the body. So this is real knowledge. Purport by His divine grace. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. So we've reiterated that point many times. Okay, the spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by material weapon, as is evident from the previous verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. So he's making this point that this doesn't validate, oh, I'm going to kill animals for slaughtering for meat. We're not really killing the living entity. We're just eating their bodies, So that's what he's saying when you use that kind of argument to validate your own material enjoyment. So the Vedic injunction is mahimshayat. Yeah, that's what ahimsa, right? Sarva bhutani, never commit violence to anyone. So we have this word ahimsa, and oftentimes you hear this in relation to Buddhism, because Buddha, being an incarnation of Lord Krishna, came in a particular time to deceive and to push out the Brahmana cult, Vedanta culture that was corrupting their teachings and eating meat and basically doing all these kind of things. So he basically to push the Vedic culture down and encourage the atheistic Buddhists who believed in basically nihilism, that you start to reinstate the Vedic things about ahimsa, nonviolence. And this is actually really interesting. Ahimsa is one of the yama niyamas of the Ashtanga Yoga, that you should not commit violence to anyone. And that's actually a subject for itself in its own, what that really means in a spiritual sense. But some very basic concepts, it says never to commit violence to anyone. And the violence, the greatest violence that you can commit is against, that the spiritual masters have taught about ahimsa, is actually against oneself, in falsely identifying yourself as your body and your mind and acting according to that sort of tenet, because you create so much material and suffering and unhappiness by doing things for your own pleasure and thinking that you're serving your own body and your own mind instead of being a living entity and using your body and your mind in the service of God. And that goes into the idea of karma yoga, and we'll get into that more. But here Bhaktivedanta is saying, notice the understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. So he's talking about animal slaughter specifically here. Killing of the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punished by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. So without authority. So there are situations where you have to kill a living entity and it's justified. You know, if a person has committed a murder, it's really actually karmically better for that person to give their body up and sacrifice their body in being killed for killing. Otherwise they have to, it's a very actually merciful, because down the line you don't have to deal with the karmic reaction of that later on. That's another, this is a very big subject actually, and there's a lot to be said that. And also here Krishna is basically stating that the war of the battle of Kurukshetra is justified by him. So therefore he is the ultimate authority, and therefore it is justified to kill people. But you can't just kill anybody without, and we have laws for that, you know, you can't just like, I don't like this person and I kill him. But, you know, the Kali Yuga, that's sort of like, you know, the justification for those kind of things. Like, you know, this guy here who killed the CEO of, and everybody is like, well, he was justified to kill because this guy's making money. You know, I mean, the argument is that he has justified him to kill him because the CEO was responsible for doing terrible things, and that's just mental speculation. And actually, that person who killed the CEO is responsible karmically for killing that body of that person. So, and he will be just probably by law also, you know, either put in prison for his whole life or executed. Hopefully executed, because that will be merciful to him. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. So Arjuna's not just doing something whimsical. You know, this is a very justifiable, and if you read the Mahabharata, there's so many reasons why it's okay. So text 20. Na jayate mirate va kalachin na yam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha ajo nichaha shavato yam purano na hayante hanyamane sharire. Na, never. Jayate takes birth. Miryate never dies. Va, either. Kalachit, at any time, past, present, or future. Na, never. Ayam, this. Bhutva, came into being. Bhavita, will come into being. Va, or. Na, not. Bhuya, or has come to be. Ajaha, born. Nitya, eternal. Shashvata, permanent. Ayam, this. Purana, the oldest. That's an interesting word, because we have the Puranas, which are histories of the Vedics, but it also comes here meaning the oldest. Na, never. Hanyate is killed. Hanyamane, being killed. Sharire, by the body. Translation. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So another very popular verse, chapter 2, text 20. A very famous verse. So here, once again, it's reiterating what Krishna had brought up in text 12 about never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, right? So he's saying that there was no birth or death, that the eternal existence of the living entity has been there consistently, whereas the bodies come and go. The material bodies come and go. So the bodies are the only things that are subjected to death. The living entity is immutable, it's not destructible, it can be withered by wind, it can be destroyed or by fire or anything, right? So it does, once it's been, it's always been. It never doesn't cease to exist. And it is unborn, so it's never born, right? We have the word aja. It means unborn. So the living entity is unborn, but Krishna, one of Krishna's names is also Aja. Krishna is not born, even though he comes to the material world and appears to be born of Devaki and Vasudeva, or being raised as a child, apparently born, and apparently he dies, but he doesn't die. He just comes and he appears and he disappears from into the material world. So he's unborn. He's eternal. The living entity is ever eternal, ever existing, undying, doesn't die, and primeval. There is no time from where he appeared, right? And he's also not slain when the body is slain. So this kind of reiterates the point before, that a person can't slay nor be slayed, and the soul is not slayed, even though when the body is slain. So this is actually a very reassuring, and when we teach these to people, it's a very relieving. It's actually the best thing that you could be teaching to a person about ready to leave their body or die, is to teach them that you're not going to die. And I was teaching this to my dad, explaining to my dad that just because the body is crapping out doesn't mean that you're going to end up ceasing to exist. I taught that to my brother. My brother's also same kind of thing. It's like that the soul will continue. There is no slaying, there is no death, there is no sting, et cetera, et cetera. So this point is being reiterated by Krishna to Arjuna as a major point for the living entities to not be in lamentation. It is done through mercy, through compassion, that we teach this information. You're not going to die. That's radical, because you're not your body and you're not your mind. And so explaining who are you to a person understands that they are eternal and that they're not going to die. This is a revolutionary concept and can completely change your outlook on things. Even if you don't go, there's more to go in the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. This is just the beginning of spiritual knowledge. And this knowledge itself lights up so many things in your life. So, purport. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. So that's the first thing to know. Qualitatively, meaning the quality, the energy, the spiritual energy is non-different than God. Qualitatively, not quantitatively, but qualitatively, right? So this is where the Shankaracharya impersonal or Mayavadi philosophy and the Vaishnava philosophy part ways, because they both understand that there is an eternal spiritual nature of the soul. But Shankaracharya would said that it is actually a fragmental part of it is actually God itself breaking himself up into a million pieces to try to enjoy this material world, whereas the Vaishnava says no, eternally, just like a sun globe has sunlight and sun particles, the spirit soul has eternally existed with Krishna eternally, but not as the supreme controller, just as part and parcel. So they are achinta bheda bheda tattva, as Lord Chaitanya said. They are simultaneously one with God in the quality of spiritual energy, but quantitatively they are not the same, so they are different. Okay. He undergoes no changes like the body. So the spirit soul doesn't change. The body changes. the spirit soul doesn't change. Sometimes the soul is called the steady, or kushtashta. That's that word steady that I brought up last time. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformation. It takes birth in the womb of the mother. The mother's body remains for some time, grows, produces some effects. That's children, right? Gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. So this is the nature of material energy in this world. It has a beginning, and you can see it in living entities who are present in different bodies, like flowers or dogs. The puppy comes, or it grows up, it has its own puppies, and then it gets older and starts to fall apart, and then it just dies, and then the body gets eaten by worms and whatnot. So this is what happens to our own bodies. And maybe we don't see it so much because we're put in boxes, or we're burned into ashes, or unless we're killed on a battlefield, and just the body stays there for a while, starts to rot, and maggots start to eat it. And this is the nature of it. But we know this goes back to this verse of chapter 2, verse 13, for the embodied soul continually passes through from boyhood to youth to old age, right? So the body has got different transformations. There's the baby body, there's a child body, there's the young adult body, then there's a older body when it has children, and then it starts to get older, and the children of that body start to grow up. And so we see those with pictures. But the spirit soul is kushtasa. It's steady, it's consistent, it doesn't change, it's not muted. It's just like that argument before. It's not broken up, it's not split up, it's not changed in any way. It's completely consistent. The soul is not born. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. So there's also a concept in some religions that we are created at birth. In other words, that comes with a lot of problems, and that atheists are able to debate. But actually, only the body is what is created at the beginning. The living entity is consistent, and it moves from the sperm into the egg of the woman and starts to fertilize at that point. Not the spirit soul, but the egg, the body starts to fertilize. So the body does have a beginning, and it does have an end, but the soul doesn't. That's the main point. So the soul does not take birth there, and soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old as the body does. The so-called old man therefore feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. Yes, feel the same. I'm like constantly surprised. I'm like, look in the mirror sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, what happened? It's like, and I look at these pictures, I'm like, yeah, I remember that when I was 7 or whatever, and running. I mean, sure, your body has more energy and you have to run around, but you don't really feel like a different person. I mean, other than what you've gained in your mind and experiences, that doesn't make you a different person, though. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. That's a radical concept, and it's also something that, when I tried to argue many years ago to some of my family members about saying, we're all different living entities, but we're playing the roles of these, brothers and fathers, and my brother was like, what, you mean dad is not really dad? And I was like, well, yeah. Not really. I mean, we have a relationship because of our body, and so there is a relationship there, and I do care about my father, and I do care about my brothers, but I'm not in the illusion that somehow on a deepest sense that is really my brother, but that's actually another living entity who I've happened to come. The spiritual masters have likened this as to sticks in a river sometimes float together and travel down the stream for a while, and then maybe they're separated and they never see each other again. So this is how living entities are in this material world. We come into the material world, we come into contact with people, and that's just how it goes. So the changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. Excuse me. The soul has no byproducts either. All right, so I read that. Okay, so that's also another interesting topic by itself to talk about. You raise your children and to try to be Krishna conscious, but they have their own wills. They have their own ways of doing things. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad, also, we find a similar passage which reads, Najayate mirate vibhishin nayam kutashin na vibhuva kashit aja nitra shavasho yam purano nahayante hanyamane sharile. Katha Upanishad. So it's very similar, a couple words that are different in there. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in the verse there's one special word, vibhashit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge. Okay? Are always full with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. So this goes back, this is really amazing. Goes back to this idea that true Vedic knowledge, true understanding of who you are is eternally present there with you. But in the contact of being marginal and under the influence of material energy, your consciousness is dampened. So that this knowledge is also dampened. So that you forget who you are. But in being presented, the light of Vedic knowledge is illuminating, so that is why it's termed self-realization, because the realization comes from your heart of knowing that is what the truth is. So when somebody tells you something, which is very different than the way that most knowledge is disseminated. You given knowledge and you accumulate knowledge to try to surround yourself and prop up a concept of who you think you really are and what's in your best interest. But the knowledge may be completely faulty and incorrect. A prime example of that, and I was having this conversation with with my daughter today about the same kind of thing about when you're given incorrect knowledge that sounds, if you don't know better, if you don't have the Vedic knowledge from your spiritual master, you think that it seems very true. And this is this concept, this sort of new agey concept of the universe bequeathing you, benefiting you with some kind of blessing, right? As if it had some activity, a consciousness to the universe is like giving things to people. And I said, this is an incorrect concept, and it actually has to really comes back to the idea of sort of being able to manifest things yourself, or having some impersonal force that manifests things for you when you want them, and so which is a really bad and incorrect and actually dangerous kind of philosophy that comes primarily from Shankara Ananda impersonalism. That you are the Supreme Lord, right? So this is this knowledge, it's important to receive the true enlightening knowledge that will illuminate what is already present within your heart. So the knowledge that comes within your heart from Krishna is not a speculative knowledge, it's not an opinion, it is the absolute truth. That's why they call it the absolute truth. And it is something that exists with you eternally. So that's the point of this in here. So that Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated, one can understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Therefore, we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced, therefore, it is daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky, early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. So this is a very good analogy. So we know that there is a source from which this information is coming from just by the presence of consciousness, even though we may not see it directly. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand that the presence of the soul. So we know that there is a soul that's giving this consciousness. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. So we don't have the understanding of all in all. We don't, as Dr. Brunner would say, all in all, another impersonalist. We only have a certain amount of knowledge, and it's very limited, right? But that knowledge is enough that we have in its pure form, the Vedic knowledge. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna, or the spiritual master. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of the Bhagavad Gita would be useless. So this is another argument that Krishna is the source of all knowledge. He is the supreme soul. Therefore, his knowledge, if it were limited or fragmented in any way, the message of the Bhagavad Gita would be void. It wouldn't make any sense. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, the Vibhu Atma. This is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way: Anyor Aniyan Mahato Mahiyan Atmasya Jantor Nihito Guhayam Tam Akratuhu Pashati Vita Soko Datuhu Prasandan Mahimanam Atmana. Katha Upanishad. Both the supersoul, Paramama, and the atomic soul, Jiva-Atma, are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentations, there we go, that's the word again. He's telling, this is citing what Arjuna was going through, this lamentation. Take those lamentations away. By the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. So you come to understand what Krishna is teaching by giving up the lamentation and listening to your spiritual master, and bring that light into your heart so that you can see what he's saying and you can realize that that is the absolute truth. You're looking at it and you're going, that's exactly what I'm experiencing right now. So when you read the scriptures in the book, it's not just like a mental speculation that I've accumulated, like I've gathered all this information and I can show it to you, like some kind of argument on Facebook. It's actually what's there in your heart already, and being presented by it, and by chanting Krishna's names and all these things that the spiritual master has given you to clean your heart, so that you can see what is being given to you is actually true. Then that's how it goes, right? It's realization. It's a wonderful thing. The Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, is so beautiful. Both the super soul. Okay, so I read that. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also. So he is a super soul, but he is also the source of the super soul, the Paramama, as it will be disclosed in following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by a bona fide representative, the spiritual master. So wonderful, so beautiful. So we're going to continue reading into this and discussing this, but it's such a beautiful and enlightening scripture. And so grateful and so appreciative to Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for coming and giving a proper translation of this, and I'm eternally grateful to my spiritual master, Jagadguru, for enlightening and illuminating what Bhaktivedanta has written in here. Thank you very much, and may Krishna bless you. Thank you. See you next time. Namaste.